Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another AFL Fantasy Fanatics live show. We are live for another pre-season episode ahead of the 2025 AFL Fantasy season. And in this episode, we'll be looking at our final positional preview, which is the forwards. And with Phillipou being out, it has thrown a massive spanner into our forward line. So we've had to look at other options, which is exactly what we'll be chatting about tonight on the episode. I'm your host, AFL Fantasy Fanatic, Bales, and you can find me at BAILSDT across the socials. For those listening to the pod, it is Sunday, the 2nd of February. Wow, I can't believe it's already February, and we're only a couple of weeks away from match sims and actually getting to watch some games, which is absolutely fantastic. If you are listening back to the video version or the podcast, make sure you join us next time live on YouTube. We're live every Sunday night, more likely at 7:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, 4:30 Perth, but we're half an hour, a little bit later tonight. A couple of things we've had to do, but we are live now. A massive thanks to all those that are tuning in live as well. It's always very much appreciated. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, make sure you do. We are less than 20 subscribers away from that magical 3,000 marker. So we're very, very close. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you click subscribe and do that. And if you'd like a question discussed or a question you would want answered or player discussed, put it in live chat and we can get to those towards the end. But joining me tonight is my two co-hosts and fellow fantasy fanatics. It's the return. Guesty has returned. It is Tim, mate. Tim, how are you?
Good, mate. Been away for most of January, over in the US as well. Really started to knuckle down in terms of my research, although I don't feel incredibly prepared for today. I've just been last minute, but yeah, look, really getting stuck in the preseason research and been reading through a lot of those preseason notes, and I'm keen for the pracky matches to begin. And yeah, I'm really curious to see how teams going to shape up this year. I think, there's a lot of value that's around. I think there's going to be more mid prices than we've ever seen before. So I'm a bit nervous about that because I went very mid-price heavy last year and I got really burnt by it. So, but yeah, look, there's a couple of probably different approaches I'm going to have this year. So, excited about the new year and excited to put last year behind me. That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. How was the US, mate? How was the trip? Obviously, you were over there for a couple of weeks.
Beautiful. So, I was in a place called Ojai, which is about 2 hours north of LA. It was a conference I was at this beautiful, it's a top 50 resort. They call it a diamond resort or something along those lines. It was sensational. Just the little stuff. Like I remember things like, I'd come back to your room and, the cleaners would get your cables and they'd put a little, thing around them to tidy up all your cables, and they'd put a little mat under your bathroom stuff. And it was just all that tiny little stuff. But more importantly, the golf course was absolutely fantastic. One of the best golf courses in the US. So it was wonderful to get out there. But I had the rentals. I didn't take my clubs with me. It was a bit far to take clubs. So didn't enjoy as much as I should have. But it was lovely to be out there anyway.
Yeah, I saw the photos. It looked pretty incredible. I'm shit at golf, so I wouldn't have been any good, but I still would have been good anyway.
That's the secret.
Exactly. Joining us once again is our other co-host, fellow AFL Fantasy Fanatic. It is Jordox. Jordox, mate, how are you? Have you got any dinner tonight? Any plans during the podcast?
No. The latest start meant that I did not. We were not have a repeat of last week's. Let's call it fork and plate gate. Yeah, real rookie stuff there, leaving the mic on. Anyway, Bales, you had a lot of fun with that during the week. That was a good video you put together. But, I'm good. I am sweating bullets here in Melbourne. I feel like I'm always whinging about the weather, but it is still 32 degrees at 8 o'clock at night, and it has been sweltering. So excuse the beat of sweat for those watching on YouTube. But no, excited. The forward line, I said on X tonight, it's always so fascinating, the forward line, whether it be a couple of years ago where there was just heaps and heaps of top primos available, to the years where you've really got to sift through the muck to find the golden players. So this year's a bit of both, and the Phillipou injury just makes it all the more interesting. So looking forward to having a chat about that.
Yeah, it's completely opened it up as well. And yes, it is stinking hot here as well, which is fantastic. 40 degrees for the next couple of days here in Adelaide. So, yeah, it's got to stay in the cool, unfortunately. But, but we'll get through it. As we said, boys, we'll be chatting about the forwards. So we are on our final positional preview. If you haven't checked out the other 3 positional previews, our defenders, midfielders, and rucks, then make sure you check that out. It's available on YouTube or on your podcast feed. So make sure you have it. If you haven't listened to them, make sure you do. Plenty of good discussions and some good guests on those. Thought before we get into it, I thought we'd just chat about a couple of things before we get into our actual player-specific options. But with Phillipou out, that's obviously created a bit of a structural change for a lot of our forward lines. A lot of people. It was a mixture. A lot of people had maybe a Horn France or so on F1, Macrae F2, Phillipou F3, and then you had Smith Daniel, and then your rookie. Or some people had Macrae F1 and went a little bit cheaper, a cheaper value guy. But with Phillipou out, I think you can go a number of different directions. You can go across to a similar price, you can go up to a more expensive, or you can go down to a cheaper value guy. So, Jordox, what have you done with the Phillipou news? What have you sort of looked at in terms of for your own team, in terms of any major structural changes, or what have you thought about?
I had a bit of cash, so I went up to Jack Graham, and I've got him sitting there at the moment. And we'll talk about him a bit later. Not sure he stays there, but I'd been thinking about him in the days leading into the Phillipou injury, so it made a lot of sense to whack him in there. So even though that did cost a bit of money, it didn't really change too much of my structure overall.
Yeah, I think a few people went to a Graham or a Sanders and didn't change too much structure, but a lot of people have gone up, some people have gone down. So it's very, very interesting. Tim, obviously been away for a few, so I'm not sure how much tinkering you've done, but with the Phillipou news, what have you currently done, if you have made any changes, or what have you thought about potentially doing with Phillipou now that he's out?
Yeah, so I'm trying to bring a bit of I've got to settle myself after last year a little bit, right? So trying to bring a bit of a different approach to last year. And then again, I do try and do this most year. I'm trying to actually not have a finished team. Like I'm trying to put, my locks in there, and then kind of, probably leaving 1 or 2 spots in most positions, you might say, free. I think we've got a good batch of rookies, and I think it's important that you got good rookies on the bench so that you've got people making money. I mean, especially with sub rules and things like that. We know we got caught last year with some, like a Sean Manor as an example, or I'm trying to think. There was another player that just kept on getting sub after sub after sub and just couldn't make any money, right? So having those people on your bench is just a waste. At the same time, we've got some pretty good scoring rookie options. So, it's also trying to balance, do you want them on the field, right? Because they could be scoring well enough. I'm trying not to get too stuck at the moment. Look, I've pretty much got the 3 locked in for the forward line. I think Elijah Hewitt, pretty much, and we'll talk about him a little bit later on, but, with the news that we're hearing now of West Coast preseason as well, he's probably going to be a lock at F6. So, maybe there's 1 or 2 spots up, whether that's an F1 or whether that's an F4 or an F5. I think we're going to have to wait to see for the pracky matches before we really get, enough intel to lock people in there. But obviously we've got a Sanders. There's even a little bit of talk about a Cam McKenzie at Hawthorn, obviously, but he's got an early bye. Who else are we talking? There's also some news come out about Luke Parker playing midfield. Obviously, he'd sit into an F1. There's a lot of conversations about Jason Horne-Francis, and it does sound like out of Port Adelaide he's going to be getting more midfield time, but it's probably not a huge amount. How fit is he is another question as well, and what does that midfield makeup look like? We'd probably expect to see maybe a little bit different in there, but I guess Willem Drew's a big question. How much midfield time is he going to be getting? So there's a lot to play out, but I think we've probably got 4 of the spots locked away. Rookies, Keiko, a couple other. Dan Curtin, I don't know how he's been going. I haven't heard much about him lately, Bales, but I know he was locked into a lot of sides there as well. So that getting that balance between rookies. How many rookies we're going to have on field? I think it's going to make this year really interesting. A lot of the top end with those early buys, a lot of those top end players as well don't, offer a bit of risk as well as don't offer a lot of value. So in some cases, I think we're going to be looking at, Jesus, where do we spend our money? So yeah, but once again, in 2 or 3 weeks' time, once we've had a bunch of pre-season matches, we might be all talking very differently.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you read I think you read the line sheet, Tim, because it's a great segue, because my next question was going to be to each of us, how many rookies have we currently got on the field in our forward line? So I'll start with you, Tim. How many rookies are currently sitting in your forward line at the moment?
Yeah, so just the one at the moment with Elijah Hewitt. But once again, another player we might even talk about, Jack Hutchison's been talked about. Yeah, there seems to be a few options. So I know we're not talking about defenders, but the one that I'm actually more throwing up is how many rookie defenders are we going to have? Because if Sada's playing, I mean, he should be scoring relatively well.
Sounds like he won't be, I don't think, from what I've heard on the track. Sounds like he's in the B team and be quiet, unfortunately.
Yeah. And
still time, though.
Yeah. Look, Travalia, I mean, obviously, I think there's some doubts about whether he'll play, but Bo Allen's going to be, it looks like Bo Allen's going to have a full-time spot on the field as well. So, once again, like depending on how it plays out, there might be one or even maybe two, which is a bit different for us because we don't normally like going the two, two rookies on field in defence.
Exactly. And there's like a Zach Reed as well. James Leake apparently has been going really well, plays opening round. We get a look, potentially start in with the double price rise. But yeah, definitely interesting in terms of our rookies. Jordox, how many have you got in your forward line? Because I'm the same with Tim. I've got just Elijah Hewitt as my one. Are you the same, or have you got another one?
Yeah, I've got Hewitt, but I've got Curtin at F6. Not certain on Curtin, but I think he'll play round one. And yeah, I'm just not sure on the role yet. So whether I want him on field or not, that'll be the decider, but very confident in him playing. It is interesting, isn't it? I mean, you'd think having two kids on the field in forward line, you'd have some pretty beefy F1 and F2s, but I don't at the moment. So it's very light, the forward line. So yeah, we'll see how the next, what do we got, 5 weeks, something like that, pans out.
Yep, exactly. From what I've heard, it sounds like Curtin was playing as a third tall down in the forward line there. So obviously they'll have Fogarty, Thilthorpe, and Tex, but does Curtin plays as the fourth tall and maybe roams up the ground, a bit like a Gunston sort of type role, or does he go in the midfield? Be interesting to see in the practice games and match sim.
Yeah, I think they're putting him everywhere. Give him a bit of a taste of it all. I don't know if they've decided on where he's going to land.
Yeah, definitely one to watch in the Pracky games, that's for sure. And then just in terms of structure, obviously we've got one rookie. It's probably hard to define, but how many guys have you got over 700K, Jordox, and how many guys under 700K have you got?
So I've just got Macrae at F1, and then the rest are under 700, including the two kids.
Yeah. Tim, for you?
Look, so I only have Jack Macrae. I mean, Horn Francis has been coming in and out of my team quite a bit, though. I just like the idea of, I think he's a pretty good shot for F1. And I think there is at least a few points in him. So, I think that might make him a worthwhile pick, especially when we're trying to kind of spend our money a little bit as well.
Yeah. In my forward line, I've got the two over 700K. One of them is one that we'll be chatting about later on, along with Macrae. And then I've got the three guys under, and then obviously Elijah Hewitt there. So, so sort of fairly similar, but I've got the one more expensive F1 currently. And then final thing before we get on to the actual individual players, we're not going to chat in depth about Smith, Macrae, and Caleb Daniel. Tim, is it just as easy as until you see otherwise, they're just locks for you?
Yeah, I think that's the case. And I kind of sort of suggested in the group chat before, I just think it's a bit pointless us talking about them. I think it's worthwhile we spend the time kind of debating and trawling through the other guys, just to help us as much as help all the listeners as well, rather than talking about three locks. Yeah.
Jordox, lock for you?
Yeah. I mean, it's a good point. And I tried today to find some way I could paint a picture where you don't have to have them, or trying to make it a negative, but yeah, I couldn't come up with much. I mean, Caleb Daniel, it still remains to be seen just where he is, but at the price that they all are, particularly him and Baz from Geelong, Smith, the price they are, they don't have to do stuff all to make money. So, yeah, lockety lock at this stage.
Yeah, and we can all thank Bevo for that because they're all cheap because he was playing them out of position, they left. So, which is good for our fantasy teams in 2025. Alrighty, well, we'll move on to the individual players. So the nitty-gritty ones that were looking to fill the other potential 2 or 3 spots if you're going really, really deep in your forward line. So Jordox, I'll start with you talking about one of those dogs with Treloar being out for 8 to 10 weeks. If you guys have missed that, as multiple calf strains throughout the preseason, hasn't been able to get going. He'll be missing the start of the season. So opens up opportunities for someone I'll talk about. But first of all, one of the ones that you'll chat about.
Yeah, so I got Matt Kennedy. He's at 791K, and I liked him before the Treloar injury. I've liked him all pre-season. I just feel like, I mean, why would they recruit him? Why would they trade him in if they didn't have some sort of role for him? I'd be so surprised if he went across to just play a bit part role, you know, as a backup, similar to what he'd been at the Blues the last couple of years. And I just know that when the guy plays midfield, he really does score. So I had a bit of a look back at his 2024 season, and there are a lot of subs, which obviously didn't help him. Still had a pretty strong average because he's not that cheap. But anyway, so I looked at the season, and I thought, let's have a look at games where he had over 30% CBAs, wasn't the sub. And he comes out with a cool average of 100 from 8 games. So I guess the thing is, if you think he's going to get more than 30% CBAs at the Dogs, especially with the Treloar news, I think he's a worthwhile player to start because, you know, he can go 95 to 100 for sure. So I like him. I don't have him at the minute, but he may be someone I put in when I want to beef up the forward line because it's a bit light at the minute.
Yeah, definitely someone that I'm looking at as well. Tim, we'll move to you. First play I want to chat about. So you obviously mentioned about Jason Horne-Francis before. So do you want to go a little bit more about sort of, you've obviously said he's been in and out for you. Sort of, you said there might be a little bit of points of upside. What are your thoughts about, obviously, with Butters and Rosie being there? Do you think he can go that 95 plus average even with those 2 guys there?
Yeah, just before we move on, I did want to give a bit of a shout out to Phillip Izzard, who's one of the listeners. He reckons that Sanders dominated the E team match sim yesterday and Kennedy was in the B team. So, look, I mean, this is like that. So just before we move on, right? So, I mean, I guess this is the concern that we've got with Kennedy, right? Like, and I totally hear what you're saying, Jordox, right? And what you're saying is entirely correct, except the one thing that you haven't factored in, which is Bevo. And, you know, I think just with, I mean, look, the answer is we don't know. We don't know. And just because he's playing in the B team doesn't necessarily mean anything either, right?
They might just be balancing the teams up.
Yeah, there's a lot. I think there's just a lot of questions to be answered at the Dogs. I also like the fact that Sanders is cheaper as well as another option. But I think all of our answers will be kind of given to us over the Pracky matches in terms of how they start lining up and what that midfield mix looks like. So I think we'll have enough info, enough intel to be able to make that decision. But you know, and the other thing on the other side, we got to watch Sanders as well. Like we saw how Bevo treated him last year. Like, you know, he kept on subbing him off. It subbed him off in that game where I think he had about 15 possessions or something like that. He was on track for probably a good 20. He spat the dummy and threw his water bottle. And, you know, I kind of thought that Bevo might have given him, you know, a week off and then kind of put him back in there, but pretty much punished him for the rest of the season. So whether, you know, he's in the doghouse now and no pun intended, but you know, I mean, you would think that they obviously drafted him for something. So I'm hoping that they're going to go that way. And then Kennedy does have that flexibility, obviously, moving forward. But, you know, we'll see how it pans out. But obviously, both of those players have got to be on your watch list. So yeah, you're asking about Jason Horne-Francis.
Yep.
Yeah. So. Look, I don't have any stats up in front of me. Let me just bring it up. What is he, $900 and something thousand?
Yep.
You're a little bit better with shit like that.
Second highest, second most expensive forward available.
Yeah. And then what do we got? We got a break even also of 90, right? So for him to consistently go up in price, he's got to be scoring at least 92, 93 or more, right? And, we were seeing a lot of that kind of mid-forward mix last year. I mean, was that only his second year? Or am I missing a year there?
Second to Port and third.
Yeah. And we could clearly see Hinkley's, intention is really to have those three guys as that main midfield with, Rosie, with Butters and with Horne-Francis. We've also you got to plug Wines in there as well as that big bodied midfielder, which we saw come back last year. Maybe he's kind of kicking Drew out a little bit, but yeah, and then also, we did see a bit of up and down with Rosie's injury and stuff like that, which kind of threw things around. I think what he ended up with about 68% average of CBAs, Horne-Francis. So, and we also know that 75% seems to be a bit of a lid for Hinkley as well. He doesn't seem to have his midfielders do much more than that. But the other thing I think we've got to consider this year is, he's had a number of years where he's performed well, but not well enough. So pressure is certainly on him as a coach. And, I think he's going to have to kind of shake things up. And we've seen, with most of the teams, that slingshot footy off the halfback is really where it's at. And, Port Adelaide haven't really kind of embraced that. So I do wonder whether we see, maybe a little bit more of a tighter midfield group. Certainly the communications coming out of the club as well. Hinkley wanted to, I think there was some talk, Hinkley was talking about Horne-Francis playing more midfield time, and Horne-Francis said, I'm not fit enough, right? So, but yeah, look, I tend to think there's at least a little bit in there, and, potentially he could be that 95, 100 averaging forward, and most likely is probably going to be our F1. I mean, I don't really know who, probably Dylan Moore is another candidate for that F1 position, but obviously with that early buy as well, that kind of maybe takes him out of consideration.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I guess is good about Horne-Francis is a lot of people are picking him just to sit him at F1, and you've got him there for the year. You don't have to worry about it. Dylan Moore would be the other guy, and I know Lemon also chatted about that as well and said that if it wasn't for that early buy, he'd be someone that he'd be considering. So, and I'm probably the same. I think if Dylan Moore didn't have that early buy, having glandular fever last year, and then getting into it sort of back half of the year, but unfortunately just with that early buy, it's just a bit hard. So I think he's an upgrade target. So we won't be chatting about him too much today, but that's sort of the thoughts there. My first player, I'm sort of going to link two players into one because I think I've got to chat about both. But the main player I want to focus on is Luke Parker. So obviously made the move over to North Melbourne in the off-season. Obviously had the injury, then I think it was last year, then suspension. So didn't get much of a go at the Swans last year. Came in, played pretty much a forward with pinch hits in the midfield. But going to North Melbourne, particularly with George Wardlaw now being out for up to 3 months, that it sucks for him. That's another soft tissue injury. He just can't quite get going, unfortunately, Wardlaw. So hopefully he's back soon. But with that void there, that's a guy that could only play midfield and was going to be in there pretty much 75, 80% of the time, right? So that's got to be distributed somewhere. I think LDU is going to get, obviously, the most. He's going to be the number one guy. So it's going to be shared, I think, with a few guys. So Sheasel is obviously one we're hearing about. It's training a lot more in the midfield this preseason with some stints forward. Tom Power apparently has been lighting up the track as well. But it's also been Luke Parker's been one of the main midfielders in there alongside. Will Phillips is another one that's also been training in there. But Luke Parker's been looking really good. I think with such a young midfield group, they're going to need that senior guy in with them. That I just think that he'll lift the group being in there. We know what sort of player he is. He's a combative player, obviously uses his body well. I just think that he'll be in there. And I think Nathan, obviously from Hat Chat, also said he reckons it's probably flipped from a 40% mid-60 forward to probably a 60-40 split, maybe slightly more even in the midfield. And I tend to agree with that as well. So he's someone I've actually currently got sitting at F1. He's the other guy that I've got sitting there. That's, again, whether I keep it there or not. I'm interested in watching the Pracky games as to how he goes. But he's someone that I'm considering. But Josh Simpkins, the other one I thought I'd link in as well. Less convinced with him just because of the fact that he has been training a lot more in the forward line apparently this preseason, has still played some spurts in the midfield and running up the ground a bit more. Whether that's just in preseason to get the younger guys through and then Matt Sims and stuff, he might play more because of Wardlaw's injury. I think I feel more confident at this stage of Parker out of the two. But I think Simpkins someone that we still got to have on our watch list just to watch to see what his role is. And I know Jaiden was quite keen on him as well before the news of him trying a bit more in the forward line. Jordox, we'll go to you. Yeah.
move on. How do you see Macrae? Like, I mean, I'm a bit, Simpkin, Parker. Like, one of the concerns that I've got. Obviously they brought Parker in. They're obviously looking for that experience, that kind of big body as well. But they've got Colby Macrae there now, right? They've got some really good young talent. Colby Macrae, Sheasel. How do you see him getting a lot more midfield time this year? I mean, I know initially we thought he might even be playing off half back, but I think there's been some reports from training he's not really been lining up there.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, but no, just quickly on Sheasel, I think he'll be that 50, 60 plus % midfield. I think he'll be like the third guy in there. Macrae, it's been interesting because I've been reading that he's been training, playing in match sims off a wing, half forward, some CBAs. So I probably don't even know where he's going to play, to be honest. I wonder if North Melbourne have got an idea and they're just trialing him out in some. I think we heard Sheasel in the preseason last year was training a little bit in the midfield and up the ground just to sort of add more strings to his bow, because obviously that's what he did before he came in. I wonder if they're doing that with Macrae as well. Apparently Fisher's been the second guy back there with Caleb Daniel, which is interesting. I heard originally at the start of preseason Fisher was forward and it was Macrae back, but now it seems to have flipped. So I wonder if Fisher is going to be playing that up in defence, or is he going to play in the forward line? Is he best 22? Is Macrae? Where's he going to play? So I think it's got a lot to play out, I think, for North Melbourne. I'm really
how do you see that midfield again?
I think it's LDU's probably number one. I think with the fact that Wardlaw's out, I'd probably say almost Powell's number two now. He probably slips in there just because he's been having a really good preseason, and the fact that he's a midfielder. He's been there for a number of years now, a lot of preseasons, and he's got to nail down that position. He's played defence, he's played forward. I think it's his time to nail down a midfield spot, and then probably Sheasel's three. Sheasel could easily be two as well. I just think Sheasel can play up forward. They're probably the three, and then Parker's probably four. Could even be three. Probably they're the top four. With Phillips, if he's in the team, they're probably the ones, and maybe Macrae gets a sprinkling. It'll be.
So the thing we've got to be careful there with Parker as well is that it's probably a short time thing as well. I mean, what is it? Wardlaw's out for 10 or 12 weeks. Is that it?
Yeah, he's out for up to 3 months, but I do think that it'll be longer than that. So he won't come straight to the AFL team. I wouldn't imagine they'll ramp him up in the VFL for a few weeks. So it could be potentially mid-season buy time. They got the round 12 buy. They got the first buy. So does he come back round 13? That's probably where I'm sitting at the moment. But obviously, yes, it's 8 to 12 weeks. That might put him around 5, 6, 7, somewhere around there. So it'd be interesting. But yeah, it could be a shorter term for Parker. That's the
thing about the North midfield mix, with the exception of maybe LDU, is they're all quite young still, and that's why I think Parker will be in there a fair bit. Like, you look at what North did. They brought in Jack Darling, Luke Parker. They've identified, hey, we've got the kids, we've got the crop. Let's get some senior boys around them and let's try and climb this ladder finally. So, yeah, I think they'll use Parker a lot in the midfield. I think it could be a good pick. And it's funny because a lot of us were put off initially because the price wasn't what we were hoping, because it's based on his average from the season before not last season. But yeah, as the preseason's gone on, I've certainly warmed to him, even at that price.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Jordox, we'll move on to your second premium, one of our Crowies.
Yeah, couldn't not talk about Isaac Rankine. I'll try and keep this balanced. No, I'm really excited about what Rankine can do for the Crows in 2025. There was talk 12 months ago he'd get a bit more midfield time, and that eventuated. And I think anyone who watched the Crows would agree we looked so much more dynamic. We looked so much more threatening with him playing in the midfield, as well as going forward and kicking snags. The issue was the injuries. He had the hammy. It was a big hammy. He had the suspension, and then he got KO'd right at the end there. So need to see him play pretty much all the games this year, and he could put together a heck of a year. So I put together the same thing that I did with Candy, games over 30% CBAs, and weirdly enough, he had 8 games as well, and his average came to 86. So that's a slight increase on what he's priced at. But a lot of people I know are concerned, and I've seen people say, look, Crows have brought in Peatling, drafted young Draper, you got Saligo emerging. There's a lot of names in there, Matt Crouch. I think people are thinking, I don't know if Rankine will go in there. I think he will. I think the Crows look really good with him playing a midfield spot. And I'll take you back to his best game in that role. It was against Collingwood at the G. I think we were both there, Bales. The game where he did his hammy right at the end when that ridiculous free kick was paid. Don't get me started. But he had 30 touches, which I believe would be a career high. 30 touches. He only scored 99 in fantasy, but he was everywhere. He looked brilliant. So, what does he need to do to be a good pick? Unless something changes in the next 5 weeks with preseason chatter, I think he'll be fairly unique. What's his ownership at? Oh, he's at 10.5%. So, yeah, that's still unique. So to nail an F1, F2 that's quite unique and goes all right, but what does he need to score? Yeah, he's got to get to 90. So can he do it at a pinch? I think he can.
Yeah, the one concern I've got for Rankine, and I was chatting to MJ about this, I think when we were doing the Peatling episode, off camera. I noticed when I think the Crows played Sydney and GWS, the 2 games where both tags started on Jordan Dawson, but with Rankine playing more on the midfield, the tags actually went to Rankine at stoppage. And Bedford went to him, Jordan went to him later in games. That's the only concern I've got, is that I think this year more tags are going to go to Rankine because teams are going to expect Rankine to be in the CBAs more. Like, I expect the first CBA of the season for the Crows to be Dawson, Peatling, and Rankine. That's the 3 I think will be in there. Maybe Saligo's in there, but they're the 3 I reckon. I just think that the Rankine could cop some extra attention, but the positive with that is that Neil Bullen coming into the side, what he did with Petrarca is he would come up to the stoppage, Petrarca would drift forward, get a mismatch, and be dangerous forward. I think that Rankine will do that. I think they'll be able to unlock that, where Rankine will start at stoppage, maybe he gets the stoppage tag, but then he'll drift forward, and then they've got to try and switch men over. So it'll be really interesting to see if what happens with that, but that could sort of counteract the extra attention there. So, very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. We'll move on, Tim, to one of your Eagles, one of the new recruits in Liam Baker.
Yeah, so look, I'm even doing a little bit of a deep dive right as we speak, right, in terms of Baker, because the stats just don't look good for him, right? Like, when we look, and he's priced at $805,000, basically, which is priced just under 80, right? And then when we look at his stats in the last couple of years, he's really he's never averaged above that. In fact, he's always averaged around about that 70 mark. But the big problem is that at Richmond, he was just getting thrown around a lot. Now, one of the things that I have been able to find is that if we go back as far as 2023, he was actually playing in that kind of centre half back or half back flank. So at the beginning of the 2023 season, he kind of had that role with Richmond. Now, in terms of averages, I haven't quite figured that out yet. But in round 2, he managed to score 100. In round 3, he scored 110. In round 4, he had an 80. Round 5, he had 122. He then had a 53, but a 94 and an 80. So there is some evidence out there for a decent enough game, series of kind of games or game data to show that he can score off that half-back flank. The question is that where the Eagles are going to play him? There is obviously with Yo going out as well, it kind of throws a little bit of a spanner into the works there with that midfield mix. And there is some concern that I think that Baker will be going into the midfield, but I do not see it happening. And the other thing I think, once again, we'll see it over the practice matches, but I know that Jep has been down to training. I know Taser's been down to training. Also, oh my God, I can't. I'm so bad with names. Sylvie's offshoot, bloody, what's his name? Helps him with his pod. The broke guy.
Zay.
Fucking hell. I can't believe his name. He'll be so pissed off when I next see him. So he obviously knows a fair bit about what's going on down at the Eagles as well. So, and pretty much what they've seen is, apart from he's had a recent ankle injury, which has meant that he's been, a little bit of running laps and stuff like that, but his recovery is coming good. But if we continue to see what they've seen, which is him being really settled into that halfback role, I think the other thing to consider is, West Coast are probably still going to be a bit shit this year. maybe a little less shit than they were last year, and a lot less shit than they were the 2 years before.
One can only hope, Tim.
Exactly. Although I was a bit disappointed to hear that Harley Reid didn't come back that flush from the break. I mean, I know he's a young fella and all that kind of stuff, but I just kind of, I don't know, I kind of hope for a little bit more from the young bloke. But he has got a lot of pressure on his shoulders over in the West at the moment.
I think the best thing for West Coast this year would be if Harley Reid wasn't the one they talk about every week.
Yeah. So I think that's where that's where I see him needed most in the team. I think Duggan will be the one that will probably move into the midfield with Yo's injury. I think there's a role for him down there. And I do think there's the possibility of him, certainly scoring above his price, and potentially, there might even be, I think there's at least 10 points there, but there might even be 15 or 20, which makes him
he's got a ceiling in the role. And I think, even just thinking from a draft perspective over the years, he's always been a popular guy on the waiver wires that you pick up after a few weeks playing in the midfield or back line, and then he goes back to the forward line, scores 50, and he costs you. I don't mind it if he ends up playing midfield. I think as long as he's not in the half-forward flank, I think he'll score and score pretty well. The only thing, he had an ankle complaint. What's the latest on that? It sounds like that's going to be okay, but
jogging laps at the moment. So look, it seems like it's recovering well. I don't think it's anything to be too concerned about.
Yeah, he said in his he had a press conference. I just saw what he said about the injury, and he said that he's all good. Bit of an ankle. He said it'd be about a week. He's running laps already, which is a good sign. So plenty of time out for the season. I'm not too concerned with that. And the thing just on injuries, Michael Growney's asked, is Rankine injured at the moment? He did come off the track, but he's completely fine. Apparently finished out the training, so he'll be fine. But with Baker. Obviously, because people are concerned about the scoring, and he hasn't had he's had little spurts, but he hasn't been able to sustain it. We heard, I'm pretty sure Andrew McGualter, I've heard this a few times. He said at the start of pre-season with Liam Baker that they want to settle him down in a position and they want to settle him down at half back. He's there. And we've seen West Coast players have scored well in defence. I know that there's been different game styles in that, but that West Coast have still had a lot of players. You look at your Shannon Hearns, your Liam Duggans, even Alex Witherden at times scored well. You got to go all the way back to like your Beau Waters and stuff, obviously, for the old school fantasy players there. Like, they've scored well. So I feel like if Liam Baker's in that role, he's going to take kick-ins. He's going to be a solid scorer. Whether he's going to be enough value to start with him or whether you wait a few weeks to see the role and then you jump on. But I think Match Sim and Pracky games are going to be really interesting to see where he's playing. So, yeah, Liam Baker's definitely, people, as they know, he was in my very first team in the preseason. So I've definitely had my eyes on him for a lot of the preseason. The final forward, Preem, we're going to just quickly chat about was Shea Bolton. He was about the only other one I could find to chat about here. He's had a calf injury. He's questionable to play in the Indigenous All-Star game on Feb 15. So and from what like Taser and Jep and that have been saying, they've gone down to Freo training, is that he's playing majority forward. He's coming up the ground at times, but there have been times as well where he's been one-on-one deep, trying to get really dangerous and be at the feet of like your Josh Tracy's, your Luke Jacksons, and Jai Amos. So he probably will add a few points because he's in a better team. He might have a similar-ish role, but he did have more CBAs at Richmond. I think he's probably a mid-80s guy around that. I don't think that's enough. I think there are guys around the price that are probably presenting more value. I was originally a little bit more keen on it, but yeah, with the injury and just hearing about the role, I'm probably not as keen. So I'd rather some of the other guys that we have chatted about. We'll move over to the forward line, we are on the forward line. The forward line value section is what I should have said. And Jordox, we'll start off with you. One of the guys that you actually brought in for Matthias Phillipou. So talk to us about Jack Graham.
Yes, I put Graham in there when that news came through. I always liked the idea of Graham, and that's why I picked him to talk about tonight. So I'd have a bit of a deep dive on him. And the truth is, after looking into it, I'm probably going to remove him now from my side. But I'll tell you what I looked at and why I liked him. I always felt like at Richmond, I know he had his injuries and whatnot, but I always felt like when he played in the role, he was a really good scorer. But I don't know, looking across his career, he's had some whoppers, like like a couple of 140 plus games. They've probably stuck in my memory over the years and made me think, oh, if he ever played pure mid, he'd be huge. But it hasn't really panned out that way for him. So he comes across over to West Coast. I think there's going to be opportunity. Before I look at this year, looking at last year, I ran the 30% CBA stats over him as well. So he had 7 games not sub-affected where he had over 30% CBAs, and he averaged 77. So that's, 15-point jump on what he's priced at. So look, it's pretty good. So if you think he's going to get those minutes in the West Coast midfield, and I might defer to Guesty shortly on that, but you've got the Yo injury. Looking at the CBAs West Coast had last year, Tim Kelly, which I'm sure will be the same, Harley Reid will be the same, and then Sheed, I don't know if they start to phase him out. And then you've got Jinby. He had a lot of CBAs, but I've seen he's going to be playing primarily defence. And then Duggan, who Timmy mentioned before, maybe he's the guy that picks up the CBAs. But I just wonder, is he going to have that role in the West Coast midfield, or is he going to be a bit of a fix-it guy that moves around like he was at Richmond in the later years?
I think he is going to have that midfield role, but I think he's going to be a lot more. I don't see him scoring much. That's the problem. I think he's going to be more the defensive mid. When you've got people like Tim Kelly, who, I'm not his biggest fan, so I'll keep my
he gets the pill,
though. But he's not very defensive minded, right? So Harley Reid, I'm not sure. He loves a tackle, but I'm not sure he's going to mark up too many players. So I think he's there to provide that kind of defensive pressure, and I don't know that we're going to see him score that well.
So priced at 62, can he tackle his way to a 75 average, make some money for you? Is there a world where you'd start him?
Look, there is, but I wonder whether that's enough. In this forward line, we've already got those 3 options. We're probably going to have some rookies that are scoring, right? So, like I said, it's kind of 2 spots, right? 2 spots left. We've talked about a Liam Baker maybe having, 10 or 15 points upside, but that might then also leave him in the top 6, whereas Jack Graham, the other thing is I think he just leaves you a little bit in no man's land. Like, what if he starts and he just doesn't go anywhere? Like, or okay, he outscores his price by 5 or 10 points. You're not really much money.
He could start,
a rookie. It's it's just kind of in that no man's land. So I think he's just very uncomfortably priced, and I just don't.
And he could score. He could start with the season with a couple of 70s, and then it's like, well, what do I do now? I've got what I paid for, but is there? Yeah, so anyway, like I said, I didn't mind him, but having a bit of a deep dive today, I think I'll pull him out of my team.
Yeah, I guess the positive is already in leadership group, so there's that. It'll be interesting to see. But
I feel like he'll have a good impact at West Coast as a player. It just won't reflect in the fantasy world. I think
it's always kind of been one of those players that we've kind of expected to go to the next level and just kind of hasn't. And I don't think it's necessarily his fault. Maybe coaches haven't recognised that in him and given him the roles that it's kind of allowed him to shine. But look, he's obviously got an opportunity at West Coast now, and we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, well, as someone that I actually played against in Jack Graham, I played against him in footy. Played for Teacher Gully, I played for Athelstone. So someone there, I hope he does quite well. As the only player I remember playing against in my footy days. But yeah, that's a long time ago. Cool. We'll go to Tim.
You taught him everything he knows. I heard about.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, cool. Yeah, of course. Yeah. But we'll go to Tim, and I think we'll package these 2 players together because they're very similar in price. The 2 West Coast rookies, one a lot more pop than the other, being Elijah Hewitt, but also Jack Hutchinson. So, Tim, you want to chat to us about those 2 Eagles?
Yeah. So, look, Elijah Hewitt, injury just meant, I can't even remember what the injury was actually, but he started playing, I think, was it 10 games in 2023? And then we didn't see him last year.
All I remember, I think, was the year before when he was it knocked out by Jordan De Goey in that game?
Right. Yeah.
That's the only thing I remember. I can't actually remember what his injury was last year, though. Yeah, he was out for a lot of the year.
And look, the other thing was he was getting a lot of forward time at that time as well. So he wasn't exactly being given an opportunity to really shine in that midfield. And what we're starting to see or hear reports about this year is that he's been getting quite a chunk of midfield time. So, really interesting. I mean, obviously, 332, basically priced at around about 32 or 33 points or something along those lines. Look, his stats don't necessarily look that great in terms of what he's been able to score. He's got some 45s in there, some 60s. Like I said, he was playing pretty deep forward, scoring those points. So, I do think even if he's a 60, right, he's worth having on the field. So he's going to make a lot of cash. So I think, we just got to continue to keep our ear to the ground during preseason and make sure that he continues to hold that role. But I think he's pretty much a lock. Jack Hutchinson, we've also started to hear a fair bit about. Look, I'm a little less confident in his ability to get games. But look, the other one that I wanted to mention as well was Archer Reed. He's been getting a number of, so he's a ruck forward. He's been getting some real kudos from, I guess, not only track watchers, but a lot of the footy players when they've been asked about, who's been impressing on the field. So, look, I think we're best off having, is it a St Kilda or a Eagles ruck R3 if we've got a red dot, or if we're not using good old Harry Boyd, right, because he's playing. So look, he might be. Look, once again, if he's getting games, right, he might be that flexibility of having a ruck forward in your forward line. But obviously, we got to see a lot to play out over the next month. So yeah, look, I think Elijah Hewitt is probably a lock in most people's teams at this moment. He's getting plenty of midfield minutes. I think he'll play round one. Jack Hutchinson, I'm not so sure about. So I think we'll just see what happens over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and Ryan Marrick's another one playing in defence as well, 420-odd K, I believe, as well. So it could be someone to keep on the watch list, probably just one we need to see a bit first. But on your point about Elijah Hewitt, yeah, obviously, Schmooky, obviously one of our favourites in the fantasy community, Nathan Schmook was saying, and also Jep as well, was also at the train there, and they both were saying that Elijah Hewitt looked excellent and attended a lot of the CBAs, if not most of them. So that's really positive to hear about someone that's so cheap. And if he's going to get that role, maybe he's the guy that gets that added opportunity with Elliot Yeo being out as well.
50%,
so, yeah.
50% ownership too. So yeah, everyone's got him. Well, it's half of everyone.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's a big ownership. So yeah, I'm a big fan of what Elijah Hewitt can potentially do this year. My first player is someone.
What did Schmooky and Jeppa say about Hutchinson and Archer Reed, if anything?
I think they were saying he was playing a little bit on a wing with some CBAs, but he was that sort of other wing on one of the main wingers. Hey,
is this Hutchinson you're talking about?
Yeah. Yes. Yep. Hutchinson. Yeah. Apparently, he was playing a little bit on a wing in some CBAs. So we'll have to see with his role. But yeah, I agree. I think with the little bit of cash you
saved, it's an awkward price as well. Just $385. Like
save $50K, you get yourself Elijah Hewitt, a few other guys, Kako, Joe Berry.
We're definitely going to have to see how those rookies kind of play out in the forward line there. But yeah, like even Marrick as well, like, over 400K, they're just starting to get into those weird price areas.
Yeah. My first player is someone I am really keen on and has been getting more and more praise from the media as the preseason's gone on, and someone that's getting even more locked into my side as we keep going on, and that is Riley Sanders. So hot off the press, today, Bulldogs had their match sim, had a few players running through the midfield, but apparently best on ground was Riley Sanders today in match sim, had over 30 disposals, obviously no official stat, but they said he had well over 30, and also kicked 3 goals from the midfield as well. So really, really promising signs from him. He's got the junior pedigree to go along with that. Obviously, he was the top scorer in his draft class in terms of the fantasy scoring under 18 championships and everything like that. So he's got the fantasy pedigree. And we saw last year he had the ability to get it done. We saw in the first game of the official practice game in preseason last year against Hawthorn, if everyone remembers, he had 30 touches that day and scored a 92. And everyone then thought, yeah, locked in, you're in our teams, bang. And obviously, round one, he was on about 15 or so touches. As you said, Tim, before, got subbed out. and then got a few subs, obviously throwing the bottle and everything that we saw. And I remember Bevo coming out and saying last year that he needs to work on a few aspects of his game, and he mentioned the two-way running and not just finding the pill. So from what we heard is that he did that in the VFL, played 7 games in the VFL with an average of over 115. So first-year rookie playing in the VFL against men and averaging 115 is pretty incredible. And apparently worked on that a lot. So he's done that in the off-season. I heard the other day about Bevo was saying how he's really improved. He's really had a fantastic preseason. I know that we take, when coaches say fantastic preseason, with a grain of salt, because they're never going to come out and say someone's had a shit preseason, are they? So he's apparently had a really good preseason, doing everything he needs to do. And we're now seeing it in match sims. The next step is if we can start seeing these in these match sims against other teams and official practice games, I think he's a really good option. And the good thing about it is he's the exact same price as Phillipou, so you don't need to change your structure. But I would still implore everyone that is doing that I know Jet has said this, one, a few other community members have said this, do research with Phillipou in terms of do different structures, put different people in and see what you can do. Don't just replace a like-for-like player. I've done that in the past. It hasn't worked very well. So make sure you guys do that out there. But yeah, Riley Sanders is someone I'm very, very keen on. Final 2 players we'll get through. Jordox, one from you, one from me. We'll go to you for the first one. Both under 500K is who we'll chat about. And the first one we're going over in the West, but to Freo this time. That's
right. Yeah, a bit of a different one. Neil Erasmus is a player that I've been quite fascinated in the last couple of years. So I had him in a keeper league in 2023, and I thought, I've got the next big thing here. He played, I think, maybe 14 games that year. A lot of them were sub-affected, but his points per minute were really good. So he'd come on for a quarter and score 30 points or whatever it was. I remember one game he played against Collingwood at the G that year. He was tracking for a real big score, and he ended up with a career high 115. Anyway, he's a fantasy guy, and for whatever reason, he just got moved out of the way last year. He played a handful of games, all very sub-affected. Averaged I think he averaged 25 last year, which doesn't make for good reading. I think he's priced on the year before, but I thought he'd find a trade and find a new home. So I was interested to see where he'd land, but he decided he wanted to stay, fight for his spot. And I think this will be his 4th year maybe on the list, and lots of good reports for preseason coming out about him. So for me, it's as simple as, if he's playing and he's not going to be the sub every week, he's a really easy pick because he scores when he plays. It's just, what does that Freo midfield mix look like? Where is Fife at? Where's Matt Johnson going to be this year? A lot of questions, but at 425K, popping him at F5, I think, it'd be a risk, but it's someone to keep an eye on for the next month anyway.
Yeah, he's someone definitely to watch. I've got some, obviously, notes from Maxim, obviously, thanks to Taser as well for going to watch those games as well. And has been saying that in the first few, his disposal efficiency wasn't great. He was turning it over, but he'd do some good things, and then he would turn it over. So that's the only worry. The coach is going to be looking at that and going, it's quite not the finished product. And then in yesterday's Maxim, apparently was very good in the first quarter, but faded as the game went out. So that sort of tends to me that he's going to be a sub, or he's got a little bit more work to do at waffle level, maybe on whether it's fitness or whatever. It'd be interesting to see if that's the case. But he's someone I think we all got to have on the watch list, because there are a few players around that price as well. And
he could be one of those players, it's too early in his career to call it, but he could be one of those guys that's too good for the waffle, but just not quite there for the AFL. Like, his waffle numbers are huge. He carves it up in that league. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, he's definitely someone we've got to watch. And another player that we've got to watch. I haven't heard anything from the Essendon match, which could be a concern, but also maybe people aren't watching him as much. Is Ben Hobbs. I've been on him for a little bit now. I don't know if someone mentioned it or if I was the first one. I'm not going to take credit, because I'm not sure if I was. But I'm looking at Ben Hobbs for a bit, and for 498K, he's been a guy that has obviously been fantasy relevant for us in the past. He's obviously got, again, this is one of those ones where you're relying on natural progression, which is okay when you are priced at under 500K. But Ben Hobbs had a bit of an injury impacted year last year, so he was sub a number of times as well. He only averaged 48.2 from 12 games, but that did include 4 green vests there. So I'd take that with a pinch of salt, obviously, from last year. But it was the year before, though, where he averaged 76.5 from 18 games. And I think a lot of us remember that because a lot of us brought him in when he was a forward. Obviously, he was just a straight mid last year, but had some really impressive scores in 2023. So just some of the scores that he had here. So when he played, when he wasn't sub, he had some 83s, 85s, a couple of 90s, 92, 97, 86, 91, 105. And that was all in a 6-game stretch from rounds 10 to round 15. So little sample size there, a couple of 70s there. Then it started to tail off towards the end and then finished off with a 108, 90, and 79. So we know he's got the ability. And that was with not that many CBAs. Like there was only, I'm seeing 2 games here above 50% CBAs. Sorry, 3 games, and one of them was 50%. So a lot of them were like 20%, 30%, 40%. So if he gets that opportunity, I feel like he can score. The trouble is, Essendon have got a lot of players to run through there. You've got your Zach Merritt, you've got Darcy Parish, you've got Sam Durham, you've got Dylan Shield going to be halfback. He's going to be midfield. Who knows? Nick Martin's been talked about running through the CBAs. Archie Perkins is someone that can run through there.
Someone you're not talking about, Bales.
Who am I not talking about? I've probably forgotten someone obvious.
All the talk from the match sim has been about Elijah Sardis.
Yes, Elijah Sardis. Yeah, exactly. Apparently, he's improved his kicking a lot. That's the big thing. Apparently, people have said that his disposal efficiency has been good. He's been tearing up. Yeah, does he get a game early as well? So a lot of guys there. Where does Ben Hobbs fit? Obviously, Jake Stringer's gone. He was taking up maybe 20, 30, 40% of CBAs in games. Hobbs seems like a fit that could fit that role. We just need to see it. The good thing is he plays opening round, and I feel like he's the sort of player that playing opening round and having round 4 is really good because we get to see it. If he scores a 70, 80, 90, we can plug him in. He'll have the double price rise in round 1 and then round 2 and round 3, and then he's got his bye. So you could actually trade him out, and that could give you that sort of breathing space to go, okay, I'm not going to start a Rankine or a Baker or a Parker or any of these guys. I'm going to watch and see who the best one is. You have Hobbs for a month, make some cash, round 4 bye comes, and you go, okay, who's the forward that I want? Is it Horn France who's dropped? Is it Dylan Moore after his bye? Who is it? And obviously Dylan Moore you have to get in round 5. So you can have a look at that, and I feel like he could be someone, but it's got to go his way. We need to see it in practice games and then opening round as well. But just someone to put on your watch list, quite lowly owned.
He's definitely better than a 49 average, that's for sure. So I quite like that play because you get the look at opening round. So
yeah, I think the buy for him is perfect as well. If he had the round 2 or round 3 buy, it'd not be great. But round 4, we're not going to have many players from that buy, and it's the last buy. Most time to have cash gen before he's on buy as well. So someone to keep an eye. He's not in my team. He's been in my team at times this preseason, but someone to keep an eye on, I think, for our teams as well. Just in terms of rookies, I'm not going to go in depth. So I'm just going to name some players to just put on your watch list if you guys haven't already. We obviously need to see them play in games, but obviously Jack Hudson, Elijah Hilt, we mentioned already. Zane Dersman's been playing up on a wing and playing up the ground, so just someone to keep an eye out. He's around the 370 mark, a little bit more expensive, but just someone just in case there as well. Jack Silvani was one we didn't mention as well. That's over 400k, half back roll, priced in the 40s, could average in the 60s. So someone to just pencil in, maybe just to watch and see what that role's looking like. Someone to keep an eye on. Isaac Kako, been getting good big raps from Essendon as well, looking really good. He's everywhere. Has that the buy, but that's good for our rookies. Get that double cash gen early and get them going. Dan Curtin as well, who we obviously chat about a little bit. Joe Berry's been tearing up for Port in their preseason. Caden Cleary's someone that's Sydney got high hopes for. Does he get a game with a new coach? Geordie Payne's someone. He was the number 1 pick in the mid-season draft last year for North. Has been going okay. So just someone at basement, keep an eye on. Jacob Costanti obviously came from Sydney to North Melbourne in that trade period. Been looking okay. Cooper Simpson as well. Taze was saying has been looking good in pre-season for Freo. And then the one that's probably a big one is Connor Stone. Has been playing off halfback for GWS and been looking quite good and might be taking that Harry Perryman role. So just someone to keep an eye on in the preseason. Again, has that opening round. So perfect for our rookies. If he goes well, you put him in. So someone to keep an eye on.
Sam Davidson at the Doggies.
Yes, why did I not put him on the list? He was actually someone I was going to chat about. So again, notes from today. I'm doing these preseason notes on Twitter as well, or X. So if you guys are doing it daily for the preseason, the guys been very, very kind with all the kind words and support been getting on there. So appreciate that. But in terms of the notes from today, apparently Sam Davidson kicked a couple of goals, looked really good, played up on the wing, and then mixed that with the third tall for the Dogs in the forward line. So that seems like a decent enough role where he could score, and it's 230K. They're sounding like he's probably going to make a debut. So someone to definitely keep an eye on there, especially in, I thought he was going to be more a key forward, but it looks like he's going to be a bit more of a hybrid, roaming up the ground and potentially on the wing. So someone to put in on your watch list as well. Sorry, I can't believe I forgot about him. Thanks, Jordox, for that, mate. We'll quickly chat about any questions in the live chat. We'll just whip through about 5 minutes or so of these. We'll wrap up. So Peter Wright's got the first one. Graham versus Sanders, Tim. Are you leaning towards Sanders, obviously, from our Graham
100%.
chat?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, agreed. Liam, obviously a good friend of the show, from Free Kick, said every time you mispronounce Matthias Phillipou, you must donate $1 to charity. So is that us doing it or people in the chat? Because if people want to put it in super chats,
they're not pronouncing it; they're only typing it. So
he put that up the second you see his name, so it was you, Baz.
I think it's Matthias Phillipou. Tell us if we're getting that right, Liam, or
Phillipou, something like that.
And then on the flip of that, Liam, you have to donate $1 to charity every time Elijah Sardis hits a target this year, which I think is going to be a few.
We like it. Sean said, how much upside do we see Sanders having? What we need from him price at 64? I see an upside of 85 plus. And if you're getting 85 plus price at 64, you're very close to the top 6. And he's got the ability. It wouldn't shock me if he averaged 90. And he's got the numbers. He's going to play. If he's in the team, he's going to score well. Could easily see that happening. So I think if he's playing midfield and he's looking good,
I reckon Bev, I'll pump the brakes on that. I don't think just yet.
Yeah. I don't see a 90 plus. I see around an 80, 85 average, and price at 64, you're pretty close to the top 6, top 8 forwards. If you're averaging around that 85-ish mark, I think it's a good pick. So anywhere above 80 would be a good one there. What have we got here? Shannon Page was saying about Kennedy at F1. George, obviously you chatted about Kennedy earlier. Could you have Kennedy and Sanders in your team? Or do you think it's one or the other?
No, you could have both. Yeah. Oh, yeah, they're both Bulldogs now.
One of them at that midfield time.
Yeah. I reckon at stages you could have both, not for the whole year.
Look, Kennedy's clearly a bloody scorer if he gets that midfield time, right? But he's a good mark above. So, we could see him playing more forward than he's a better forward than Sanders is, right?
And the question mark around Ugelhagen when he's going to be back, if he is, hopefully he is, that is the concern with Candy. He can play forward. He can take a mark. Just on Sanders again, though, quickly, I reckon he'll be averaging really good, and then after the buys, he'll slow down, he'll get a bit tired, and we'll see him rested a bit more from that on-ball spot. So he might be a guy you have for the first half of the year, makes a ton of cash, and then if you can jump off at the right time, you'll be laughing.
I think the thing we got to watch for is that if he does, he could be one of these players that kind of take the game away from him a little bit, and not like one of these top players that goes 140 or something along those lines. But if he comes in and if he is getting a lot of midfield time early and he is averaging 90 or something along those lines, that's 30. Like it's a bit like a Riley Bonner from last year. Like you're going to be making a significant amount of cash in a quick amount of time, and if you don't have him, you're going to get left behind a little bit. I just think you got to watch that with Sanders. I think he's got that ability.
Yeah. No, very, very good call there. The other thing I just want to flag with Kenny as well is I was looking at these numbers potentially for a bit of a video that comes out tomorrow. You guys stay tuned. I'll be saying what's coming out tomorrow. But we were chatting about that, looking at some of these scores from Kennedy when he played a full game last year and he wasn't the sub. 47, 58, 63, 36, and 56. So he does have the ability. If he doesn't have the role, he can score really poorly. So that's just something to flag. Yeah, exactly. So something to flag there as well. Looking at him. Couple more before we finish up. Looking through here. Baxter said Spargo, F6. Anyone keen on Spargo? He's like 300, like low 300s. I guess we'll have to see first, right? I would imagine I'll probably still have Elijah Hewitt ahead of him, probably going to have a better role. Spargo's just going to play forward. But I guess someone to keep on the watch list if we don't get any options. But
yeah, he's cheap enough.
Yeah, exactly. I thought I'd just say it's from a question for Andrew here. So obviously we're not chatting about mids today, but I've got to mention anytime it is. Andrew said he's got Rory Laird in his midfield. So anytime anyone's got Rory Laird, that's my tick of approval. Definitely get that. He's going to get defender status in round 6 and be potentially top 6 to 8 defender for us. So something to keep an eye on, especially in draft, getting a bit later there. We talked about Silvani there. So from Alex. So Tim, you got your eyes on Silvani as well, just to see if he's playing off that halfback.
Look, I've heard. I didn't have my eye on him. I've heard a couple of people kind of start to mention him as potentially getting a little bit more. Potentially getting that. I mean, with Newman going down, we've obviously been talking about Doherty. We've been talking about Ollie Hollands potentially getting that role, and I heard some talk that Silvani might be getting a little bit of that role. So maybe, but. Look, he concerns me. Obviously, he's never really been much of a scorer, but, practice matches roles will become a little bit clearer. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Odin, obviously friend of yours, Tim, and ours from over in Perth, was saying about one player that no one's talking about currently in our forward lines is Sam Powell-Pepper. I don't even know what his price is because I honestly haven't even looked at him in pre-season.
I looked before, about
498K. Exact same price as Ben Hobbs. So, yeah, he's got the ability to average 70, 75. So someone I guess we can keep an eye on. But yeah, probably just the role isn't exactly what I'd want. So, but yeah, no, someone that definitely we could be looking at in the forward line.
Him coming back is what's going to allow Horn Francis to play in the midfield a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly. Alex says, anyone brave enough to consider Tom Lynch? He was concussed in training. He's in concussion protocols now. He's touch and go for their practice games. I just think key forward, 430 odd K. He's more a super coach pick for me. I don't think we're looking at him in AFL fantasy. I don't think so. And then Liam said it's Phillipou, like the Teletubby. So there you go.
That brings me to a good point that I brought up a while ago. We can't call him the Pooh anymore. If it's Phillipou, we're not calling him Pooh. We're calling him Philly Steak. All right?
We're going to call him Pooh.
Or the Poe, I guess that works. Thanks, Liam.
Yeah, beautiful. No, we love your work, Liam. Thank you very much for that, mate. Also corrected me on the Saeed El Hawali, as I was saying in the team reveal video and early in pre-season. So
was that the right pronunciation or the wrong one?
Yeah, no, that was the wrong one. It's Saeed El Hawali, and we appreciate Liam letting us know as well. So
okay,
yeah. Beautiful. Alrighty, that'll wrap us up for the forward episode. But obviously, once again, thank you very much for everyone that tuned in live and sent through their questions and tuned in live. And as we said before, if you are not tuning in live and if you're free on a Sunday night and you want to have some fantasy topics to get your questions answered in live chat, make sure you guys tune in. We're live pretty much live every Sunday night up until November, or at least I will be when the AFLW is on as well. So make sure you guys tune in for that as well. And also, as I said before, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube. We are so close to 3,000 subscribers. We're so close. I can taste it. We're nearly there. We're at 2983. So we're only 17 away. A couple of legends have done it while we've been live. So thank you very much for that. Make sure you do, and also leave a like if you are.
Guys, if you're watching, subscribe. Help us hit our 3,000.
We're so close. Tell your friends. Come on now.
Yep. And smash a like as well. More likes we get on it, the more the algorithm on YouTube gets it going. Maybe more subscribers might help us that. So that would also help us reach that goal. So if you can click like, takes 2 seconds. That'd be fantastic. And also our Facebook group on Facebook, AFL Fantasy Fanatics. Make sure you guys get involved in that. There's a heap of chatter in there. You can share your teams and stuff and get chatting amongst yourselves. Please answer questions. I've said that on a few pods. Still getting a lot of people that aren't answering the questions. Please just do it. It takes 2 seconds. It's favorite club, favorite player on your fantasy, and name 3 people in the podcast.
It's simple. If you don't answer the questions, he won't let you into the group. So
exactly.
Answer the questions, you don't get in.
Yeah, exactly. So make sure you guys do that. But yes, boys, thank you for jumping on. Jordox, mate, where can the people find you across the socials? And also, something exciting tomorrow.
Yes, very exciting.
Let the people know.
Yeah. So I'm on X at Jordox 2020, and I'm also, as of tomorrow, launching my very own podcast based on Keeper League and Dynasty League strategy, and that's coming out through the coaches panel, which I'm also a part of. So tomorrow is the big premiere, the debut. Find us keepers on X at FindKeepAFL. and follow my feed tomorrow. I'll be spruiking it. But first episode's out tomorrow, looking at the defender rankings for the redrafts. Pretty excited. So hopefully everyone tunes in and enjoys it.
Yeah, beautiful. Now get around it. Going to be very, very good. Looking forward to that. Tim, mate, thank you very much for jumping on. Good to have you back as well. We've got you back. We're now going. We're full. We're ready to go. Where can the people find you across the socials and anything else you wanted to chat about before we finish up?
Just at Tim Guest AU, wherever you're talking, whether it's TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, whatever it is. Look, we will be doing something with Infinite Wealth again in the Content Creators Cup this year. We've got something pretty special that we're going to actually be rolling out for that. So stay tuned. The plan is to launch it and give everyone 30 days until round one or first lockout. So you'll probably be hearing more in the next week or so about that. But yeah, stay tuned.
Yeah, beautiful. I'm raring to go after a tough grand final loss. I've been out on the track early. I was out the day after, and we're ready to go. So I need to avenge my loss. I need to get it back. But beautiful. Looking forward to that. And you can find me at BAILSDT, and you can find us at AFL Fantasy Fans on Twitter. If you listen back to the podcast, please leave us a 5-star rating and review. That'd be very much appreciated. We've got a couple of exciting announcements potentially coming out as well in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned for that. But one of them, tomorrow, the head-to-head series is also back. So you got the double of the Finders Keepers debut, but also the head-to-head series is back. And I have none other than the Warn Dog jumping on with me to jump on. We had him first episode last year. We got him back. And it's always good to chat with the Warn Dog, chatting about a couple of Bulldogs forwards. So you can pretty much guess who they are, but a really good discussion there. So make sure you guys tune to that. And then we've got episodes Monday, Wednesday, Friday, leading up until the match sims and opening round. So make sure you guys tune into that. But thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll have another special guest, very, very special guest next Sunday night. We'll let people know about that. But until then, have a good week, and we'll see you guys next week. See ya.
See ya.
See ya.